I got to be a part of an IPO when I was 24 years old, and I was moved into a leadership role very early on, which in hindsight, I probably had no business like leading a team.
You're so successful so early on, but it comes at a price.
Whew, that's heavy. I got a call from my president, and he said, we just signed a letter of intent to be acquired. In hindsight, would I do it again? Probably not. Cut that.
Hey, I want to grow my personal brand.
Yep.
What would be the quickest way of doing that?
Video is the fastest growing channel on LinkedIn right now. I think people would be surprised like how quickly they start to gain traction.
If I'm opening my laptop, what does this email look like?
I hit $1 million. Like that's what you asked me to do. Our CEO, Andrew, was on the cover of Forbes, and that changed the trajectory of my career. You should try sales. Like you could get paid essentially for talking to people. I'm like, all right, sign me up.
I use dashes and I did it before ChatGPT.
Americans can be quite irritating and like, just like, don't come for me in the comments.
Welcome to Sales Rewritten, a podcast for the sellers. No buzzwords, no fake hustle here, just straight talk about what it really takes to succeed in sales. I'm Alex Wood, and every week I sit down with some of the sharpest minds in sales to find out what drives them, the wins, the losses, and just about everything in between. Today's guest is Brett Runyan, someone who spent the best part of 15 years leading sales teams across some of the biggest names in tech. From Seismic to Glassdoor and LinkedIn. Someone who leads with empathy, energy, and intent, but also for being refreshingly open and honest about burnout, balance, and self-worth. Some of the things we'll be discussing today. So let's get straight on into it. Brett, welcome.
Thank
to
you.
Sales Rewritten. That's quite an
Thank you.
introduction,
It
isn't
was.
it?
I'm like sitting there like, wow, okay, who is this guy?
Well, we've got so much to unpack.
Yeah.
My first question, though, is this. When someone asks what you do, how do you describe it?
I'm working on this. Like, this is a funny one that you ask, because most often when someone says, like, what do you do? What do you, career-wise, I flatly say, I work in tech. Like, I just kind of leave it at that. And I think that comes from a place of two things. One is, it's the world I've always just lived in from a career perspective. And so I kind of just expect everyone to know what that means, like, which is so silly and kind of arrogant. It's not coming from a place of arrogance. It's just like I work in tech. And I've always lived in like big metros and stuff. I live in Cleveland now with my husband, which is where he's from. And so I'm finding that people will say, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So that's the first reason why I say it, is because I've just lived in that space. And then the second reason is because, and I don't know if other people will relate to this or not, but tech is kind of in this weird space right now. Like, it kind of feels like people don't love tech. People aren't like, where before 10 years ago, people, oh, that's amazing. Sure. Where do you work? Like, let's talk about it. Now people are like, oh yeah, okay. Like, it almost is like saying you work in banking in the 2000s, you know, like it just kind of has this weird feeling to it. And so that's kind of what I say now. I'm working on it, and I need to be more clear and explicit because I love what I do.
Yeah, tech, it feels like it's had certainly a transition. Maybe it's layoffs that we've seen recently. Perhaps it's the exponential growth that a lot of these companies enjoyed in those sort of early, late 2000s. Yes. And now we're maybe seeing a little bubble burst for some of those. And
that's right.
Let's start maybe with, where did you first think sales or tech might be the avenue for you?
I moved to Chicago after my undergraduate degree. I went to Michigan State, was born and raised in Michigan, and natural progression took me to Chicago, and was working for branded and printed like merch for like swag. I'm like, why am I forgetting what that? It's literally with swag. So like we would go to customers and we would try to get them to buy, like we would broker between like the businesses that were actually doing the printing and the sourcing and stuff. And, we would go to Surf and say, hey, do you want hoodies for your podcast? It was my first like sales job, and it was my first job out of college, and it just like fell flat. It just didn't work for me. In the corner of that office, like 20 or 30 people were building this company, selling basically deals of the day to local merchants, local businesses. And it was called Groupon. And I remember like they would come in every day and they would just like be hooting and hollering and having fun and like on the phones, like doing the work, but it didn't seem or feel like work. And so I remember I walked over there one day and I just asked one of them, like, what's going on? Like, why are you guys in this office? And they said, we're we're Groupon, and we're owned by the same investment firm, like the same VC firm. And so they just tucked us into this office as we are looking for a new office. So we're kind of just here temporarily. And I remember saying to one of them, like, is there a way, like, how do I'm over there. I'm not vibing. Like, I don't really like this. I'm selling like, business cards. And they pointed me into the direction of a recruiter, Courtney McDonough. So if you're watching this, hello, Courtney. And I said to her, well, kind of where my head was at. And she said, look, like, we can't pull you over. Like, it's just not standard operating procedure for us to just pluck people from different businesses. But if you weren't working at Inner Workings and you wanted to work at Groupon, you would have to leave and then apply. But like, we're hiring a lot. So like, kind of like, so I did it. I literally quit the next week and I put in my application, and like 4 weeks later was offered an account executive job at Groupon.
Wow.
And that was the beginning of my like real sales experience and my real tech experience. And I think Groupon now, or even back then, like we called it tech. It wasn't, it was tech because it was,
by definition.
But it was calling local merchants and saying like, do you want exposure on this platform? And it was growing so fast. And we were on the, our CEO, Andrew, was on the cover of Forbes. I got to be in a Maxim magazine shoot with a bunch of my colleagues. I was asked to be the Grouponcierge, which was like the Groupon holiday national spokesperson. Like I would do radio segments. Like we talked about me being in journalism, and this, like, they would send me around to do TV segments, radio segments to push Groupon during the holidays.
Wow.
Like give the gift of Groupon rather than giving a present.
Very clever.
So my first experience in tech and in a real like sales role was so like magical.
Fun.
Like it was just like,
described that.
Yeah, like it was just, every day was different, and I was working with my friends, and at the time it felt like we were doing meaningful work. We were bringing exposure to these small kind of company or businesses in metros that maybe otherwise wouldn't have the budget or the ability.
Sure.
This was before like Google, like places and reviews. Yelp was kind of around, but it was just this like new wave of like how people learned to explore their cities.
Yeah.
And I was there early enough where I got to work on big cities. Like I got to be a part of launching cities and that sort of stuff. Everything happens for a reason, right time, right place. Like I'm so lucky to have quite literally stumbled upon that opportunity.
Yeah. The fact that you were just in the same place,
Yes.
the same building.
Yes.
I love the way you described they were just vibing
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And like you say, when we think about how tech has changed,
Yeah.
that sounds such like a cool job. The way that they were doing their business, the way that opened up for you and brought you into a career and an industry and gave you that grounding.
I got to be a part of an IPO when I was 24 years old. Not only was I given that opportunity, but I put my head down and I busted my butt, and I was moved into a leadership role very early on, which in hindsight, I probably had no business like leading a team. I was leading a team of people my age. Like it was not like a normal circumstance, but that again was the first, not only was it my first tech experience, but it was also the company and the opportunity that gave me my first leadership opportunity.
Yeah.
And that changed the trajectory of my career.
It sounds like you got in so early on. I think I read somewhere employee number 200.
It was, around 200.
You were one of the first, in the door, as it were. And their growth was attached to your growth, in terms of the speed with which you manage that. And that's an aspect of today's conversation, because it's a fascinating one for a lot of, I think, young aspirational salespeople. That sounds like the dream.
Yes. Yeah.
Like that is it. You're so successful so early on, but it comes at a price. I want to get into, you've been everywhere. You've worked obviously in the US. You moved over to Ireland. Was that always part of the plan?
The affinity for Ireland came from my family. My great-grandpa is from Ireland, Michael Sweeney, from Donegal. And so there was always just this, like, Ireland was always on a pedestal when it came to just my family. And I have to give some of the credit to that, the career component of it, to LinkedIn. The first time I was at LinkedIn, I was with LinkedIn from 2013 to 2016. They did an incredible job of creating opportunity for people in the US to explore opportunities in APAC and EMEA. So it was almost like, I don't know if it was actually like a job fair, but I have this like distinct memory, and this was over a decade ago, of people kind of having these conversations all in one day. Like I remember a girlfriend of mine, Daryl, she was like, I'm meeting with the team from Sydney and they have open roles. And so I'm meeting with a couple of people today. And someone said, I'm meeting with the team from Ireland. And I just remember being like, oh my God, I have to do this. Like I want to do this. And so I remember having a conversation, putting my name in the hat, going through the process and coming out the other side with an offer to move to Ireland with LinkedIn. The caveat was I was a senior relationship manager and they only were able to move me as a relationship manager. So in theory, it was going to be a step back. So a step back means change in responsibility, compensation. You then layer on the fact that, Ireland and the US have different pay scales. Like it turned into this like crazy exciting moment for me. And then I got the offer letter and I'm like, oh my God, like how will I make this work? And so it kind of just got to a point where I realized now is not the time. Like this just isn't the right fit. It was heartbreaking, but it was just a decision I knew was the right decision to make. Fast forward, I left LinkedIn to go to Glassdoor. I, within the first 6 months, meet the then head of UKI. I explained to her kind of this journey that I went on with LinkedIn. Like, I almost moved over there and this is something I was always been interested in. And so she and I kind of started to stay in touch. And then 2 years go by at Glassdoor and the investment and the visibility into Ireland became greater and greater. My role within the business had gotten a lot of visibility because I was helping launch the Chicago office. And so we went from like 20 people to 300 in the course of 2 years.
Wow.
And my team was the top performing team in the company. So I was this high performing leader, but also had kind of stepped into this extracurricular leadership role of like being the culture champion and like being the person that got brought into interviews and like the final round. And, we think we want to hire Alex, but like, can you vibe check him? Like that kind of stuff. And so my CRO at the time, Kate Allring, who is now at LinkedIn, like came to me and said, look, we would love for you to move to Ireland and lead the Glassdoor EMEA team. We need to build an SMB team. We need to build a mid-market team. Like we kind of have some leaders in place, but there's a huge opportunity to basically replicate what you just did in Chicago in Ireland.
Got it.
And that was the light bulb moment where I'm like, this is everything happens for a reason. Like, this is why I didn't go the first time. Like, I'm moving over as like a second line leader, a director. I just felt so humbled and grateful that the decision I made 2 years ago or 3 years previously truly was the right decision and that it led me to what that was.
It paid off.
It paid off.
You were patient, you waited. And I think that's, interestingly, something a lot of people probably will relate to.
Yeah.
Opportunities often come along, or certainly job changes, those conversations you have results in an offer, and it didn't feel right. It sounds like it just didn't feel quite like the right time to make the move.
For me, it was making sure I was having the right conversations, making sure my name was in the room when Kate and her leadership team were saying, how do we get EMEA to grow at the same clip as the US? What kind of leader do we need over there? I was making sure they knew it's me.
You were on their radar.
I'm on your radar. I'm the leader. I'm the one that wants to do this.
Yeah.
And you have to back that up with performance. Like it wasn't, if I finished the year at 98%, that's very different than me finishing the year at 123%.
I want to ask you about having moved. An American who's worked in Europe, who's worked in Ireland, who's working out of London. That must expose you to so many different cultures.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, just from a sales perspective, like what are those perhaps barriers or challenges that you realized when you stepped into the role, maybe from the US to Europe for the first time?
For me, it was plug and play. It was, I've done this before, like exactly what I had just said, right? Like I'm a strong performer here. I know how to build teams. I know how to incentivize and influence. Surely that will feel and look the exact same.
Yeah.
Whew. Not the same. And I think that was a very junior mistake of mine, was to come over and to assume that I can just replicate what I had done in the US here in EMEA. I had to kind of backpedal and realize that like I'm starting over, not from scratch, but I had to put myself in the mindset of like 2 years back. And I think in hindsight, I've also learned like Americans can be quite irritating and like just like
You said it.
yeah, I said it. Don't come for me in the comments, but and it's not coming from a place of like intentional
No.
irritation, but it's like we are so used to pushing the pedal to the metal,
Yeah.
especially in tech, especially in the US, where like expectations are so high, and it's like let's get it done, and you're praised for that level of speed. And it just doesn't translate over here.
No.
It just is not the same.
There are distinctions perhaps that you have to learn
Yes.
as an American, even about relationships between European countries.
Yeah. Yes.
It's can be a bit of a hot potato
Totally.
in some ways.
One of the things I had to learn quickly was like British and Irish humor and like just like how people joke around about stuff and like what they find to be acceptable and what's not. And I think once I started to tap into that and I understood kind of in Ireland, it was not self-deprecating, but it was just kind of like, oh, sure, look, like I'm grand. Like, everything's kind of like blasé. And if you kind of play along with it, they think it's funny. And so like I learned that. But to your point, you can take it many layers deeper. And
it's very easy to pass it off as a jokey light comment. But actually humor is one of those humanizing qualities, that I think every great salesperson probably has at their disposal or should have within their repertoire. If they want to build a relationship, right?
Yep. Yeah.
You kind of need to be able to do that in a way that feels natural, organic. And humor seems to be a way of doing that.
Totally. Yeah. If you can bring like a little sense of brevity to a conversation, usually you can get people to loosen up. I think where it gets tricky is there are some people who just like don't have senses of humor, and you want to connect with them and you want to have this fun conversation. And I get like, there are some people who aren't great at it and that like, it's kind of cringe and you're kind of like, this could have been an email or like, you don't really even know your own product. So like, I get it.
This could have been an email. I really felt the way you said that, by the way.
Yeah.
You flip-flopped and actually, interestingly, flip-flop between two companies. But for some people, companies going back is like a big no-no.
Yeah.
You did it twice.
I did it twice.
Talk to us about that.
Someone said you should write a book about it. And I in my head, it's like the art of the boomerang, like how and why you should consider going back to a business that you've left. And I think the circumstances are different for everyone and different opportunities and that sort of stuff. For me specifically, I left Glassdoor in the summer of 2020, which was COVID, and I was living in Ireland. The decision for me to leave Glassdoor at that point in time was because we were basically taking the EMEA sales organization or EMEA organization in general from about 120 folks down to call it like 20 or 30. And in that experience, in that decision-making process, I kind of just had this moment of, I have gone every single year at Glassdoor a step above, or, a step further, like manager, senior manager, director. I was in Chicago, now I'm in Dublin. I was involved in 119 interview processes to bring people in. And so it just creates such a connection to the business. Like you are this, not gatekeeper, but you're the person who's really kind of helping this business grow. And you're
quality assurance at this point.
I'm Q&A at this point. And with that comes many people joining the business, you've already kind of touched them. I share that because when we made the decision to do a reduction in force, I felt like all of those pieces were kind of being taken from me. And if that's dramatic, then call me dramatic. But it was this moment of like, I feel like it's such a loss in my own self, in my own experience here. And I feel like that partnered with the fact that I've had this beautiful trajectory, that if I get off of this ride, I get off of it at like such a beautiful time. And it's like, I've done my job. I've been here for 5 years. I've grown the business. I've been a part of multiple regions and other people's journey here. And I can leave with gratitude and I won't leave with resentment.
No.
So we stayed in Ireland. I got my MBA from Trinity. And then at the tail end of that, landed a VP role at Lessonly. The day that I started, I got a call from my president, and he was the president and co-founder and was my boss. And he said, we just signed a letter of intent to be acquired. And I'm like, okay, so this was my dream job. I just went through this MBA program to land a VP role, and I did it. And I just was like on this like just
Wave.
yes, like it was just like I'm like I was right, like I got this. And then that happened, and it was okay. We were being bought by Seismic, which is where that experience comes into play. And my job for the next year became an integrated leader, specialist, almost like a consultant.
Yeah.
And so my MBA came in handy. But it was like taking parts of the Lessonly business and integrating it into Seismic. And after a year of doing that work, Glassdoor came back to me and said, "We want to bring you back as the head of go-to-market, like the CRO, essentially." Dream job.
Absolutely.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I'm going back to this business.
You've got a great relationship, you know the people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's a slam dunk. I'm like, I'm so excited to go back. Like and having left the way I did was exactly why I did that. So I go back to Glassdoor. It was this Boomerang. It was this really incredible opportunity to lead go-to-market. And without going into too many details, it just like wasn't what it was supposed to be. Like I don't think it was. Two things can be true at once. It was a good opportunity and it taught me a lot, but it wasn't a good opportunity. And in hindsight, would I do it again? Probably not. We ended up doing another layoff, like a 300-person layoff, and most of it was go to market, which was my team, and my role was impacted, and two of my VP roles that were reporting into me were impacted. But I took one more opportunity after Glassdoor, a VP of global sales role at a publicly traded tech company, and it was a nightmare. Like it was isolating. My boss was in a different region. Our CEO was a bully,
Really.
to keep it, PC. It just wasn't a good fit. It wasn't a good experience for me. I like lost a patch of hair. Like I had like stress-induced alopecia. I started having anxiety. Like it was this like very intense experience. I was like having an adverse reaction to the actual role itself.
This is your body.
My
It's
body.
like telling you.
Yes.
Maybe what I don't know. Maybe what you're trying to ignore.
Yes.
Push through.
Yes.
And you're physically.
Yes.
Not good.
And it's because I was convincing, like, I'm like, this is strike three.
Yeah.
This is like, you are now on your third executive leadership role in 3 years. It is going to, people are going to say like, it's you. Like, how is this not a you thing? Some of it was me. Like there were things that like in hindsight, I could have done differently. I could have changed. But overall, like it was three unfortunate circumstances that completely changed the way I viewed myself and my own capabilities. I started questioning my own capabilities. I started, I was having conversations with like my mentor and even with myself that sounded a lot like, should you be in tech? Should you be in leadership? Was everything that got you to this place just kind of luck? Like, was it right time, right place? And I started believing all of those things. And so it was a really, really weird and strange time for me, to be completely honest with you. As someone who put so much weight and self-worth into my professional self, I was like so lost. I was so down. I was a shell of myself. And so I left that business without any job, like nothing lined up, nothing ahead of me. And I just stopped. I just took time. And my husband, John, was a huge advocate for me to just like take the space, relax. Like, this is not good, like for you to be in. We've been together for 13 years. So this whole journey, like he's been a part of. And so for him to stop me and say like, you need to quit and it needs to happen in the next week. And like, and you're not going to be looking for another job. Like he was like, intervention in a way, kind of stopped me in my tracks and made me realize like, okay, this is
something's fundamentally
something is
right.
off.
I want to just unpack your Something you talked about a moment ago in terms of your self-worth and perhaps how you defined that and the attachment to your professional success.
Yeah.
And those job titles.
Yeah.
What advice do you have and do you give your young salespeople, your teams now then, about perhaps the danger of attaching too much or investing too much in that job title, that salary, and that progression?
Yeah.
What's your message?
Whew, that's heavy. Your career can and should, in most circumstances, like bring you a sense of fulfillment. It is an okay and a good thing for you to feel fulfilled by the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Where it gets dangerous is when it is the majority of your fulfillment, where you are so wrapped up in what you do every single day. You get home and you're checking Slack and you're on your email and you're trying to do this and you're trying to do that, and you're losing sight of the fact that you had a life and like things that you enjoyed before all of this. You know what I mean? Like I lost sight of those sort of things because I was so enamored with this idea of getting a title or more responsibility or making more money. And like, again, in isolation, those things are okay. Like it isn't bad, but it's when it consumes you and like you tie your worth, your self-worth to whether or not you get that promotion, to whether or not you're a VP, to whether or not you're an AE and you think you should be a senior AE, or like you want to be a manager. Like it is okay to have those dreams, beliefs, desires, but it is very dangerous to allow yourself to say, if I don't get this, then like I'm shit, or it's just not healthy. And I think you made a good point in that, like, it's just kind of, unfortunately, the world we live in is tech, especially.
I was going to say, is this more pronounced, do you think, in tech, or I was going to say more broadly sales? The way that the industry and certain roles are incentivized, the structuring, you're chasing targets, you have a quota, there is a number.
Yep.
And I think a lot of your success or feeling like you're doing well is attached to how well you are hitting those targets.
Yeah. I do think it is heavily weighted in tech sales. I think that we perpetuate the narrative. I think that businesses, they celebrate, these people who crush their numbers and get 150%. And it's kind of like, that's great and everything, but you're asking, like, just to put it in numbers, like, let's say my quote is $1 million and I hit $1 million. Like, that's what you asked me to do. Like, that's like I've done the job. Why should that be any different or celebrated more or less than someone who did 1.5? Again, like, I know you can argue that, like, it is important to overperform, and there are people who've closed big deals, and I was so wrapped up in kind of what was next and like kind of like looking to the future. How am I going to get to this next role, this next phase, company, salary band, whatever, that I lost sight of the things that made me happy. I lost sight of the relationships in my life. And like, my husband and I, like, I could just see him getting bored with me, like at dinner, like me talking about things at work. And he's like, I don't care. Like, I don't, this isn't like,
you're having one conversation and
he's
your soundboard, really, isn't he? At that
he
point?
Is. Like, I mean, I in a lot of ways should have been on my payroll because he was like my EA. And
I want to ask about empathy and sort of putting in barriers to prevent this then from happening again, either for you personally or in your teams. You manage teams of lots of different salespeople. So how do you kind of put things in place where you can balance, getting the absolute best out of this person and pushing them and motivating them, but putting in barriers whereby there's a safety net and you can spot burnout before it happens?
You have to, as a leader, you have to practice what you preach, and you are responsible for the boundaries. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of leaders blow those boundaries out, like completely blow them up and set the wrong tone for people, and do a disservice to their teams by not having their own boundaries, right? Like answering emails after 7 or slacking someone or getting work done on a Sunday. Like those are all reasonable things as a leader to have to do, especially as a senior leader. But there's a scheduled send function. There is, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah. It's little things.
Yeah, little
Yeah.
things. Like there are things I sometimes, if I haven't had a long weekend, people talk about Sunday scaries and stuff. Like I can combat that by getting some work done. Which I'm sure people are like, oh. But I literally I can. But I know that if I'm going to send something to my team, or it's an ask or something like that, I'm scheduling the send. Like it's going to go out on Monday morning or Monday afternoon. Like reminding yourself that we're not saving lives, unless you're selling,
So, yeah.
like
Unless you are saving
medical
lives,
devices and, they need to be there. It's not going to make or break a life if you answer that email at 9:00 at night. And so I think as a sales leader, it is our job to set the precedent of like what boundaries look like and that it's okay. One of my RVPs had his son's confirmation today. So they were they were going to the church and stuff. And he messaged me, hey, I'm on my way to the confirmation, but like I have my phone. And I'm like, if you don't put your phone away, like there's gonna be a huge problem. Like get off your phone, like things like that. And that's just like him being thoughtful. And he just like, well, I want you to know I'm online. You're in London in case something happens. I'm like, nothing's going to happen. Like nothing is going to happen. I think the more you show up with empathy, the more you show up with understanding, the better work you're going to get from those people. They're going to just trust you more, and they're going to believe that you care about them because and that for me is a true characteristic that I do have is like I do have a lot of care. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and so I think that if we look back to like all of these things I've been able to accomplish, I think if you were to ask former colleagues and direct reports of mine, I think they'd say, I know Brett cared deeply about me professionally and personally. And I think that's a huge differentiator for me.
You mentioned and have talked about your time with LinkedIn. I didn't know that your husband actually also has works there as well. That is a huge platform for our audience.
Yes.
Yeah, for sellers, for salespeople today. That is pretty much your go-to marketplace, whether it's for content, your brand, engaging with prospects. It's pretty much that one-stop shop now, where so much of that early stage discovery conversation is happening. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about what using LinkedIn should look like in 2025. And like, how can you get the best out of this tool?
So funny enough, my last stint at LinkedIn, I was part of LSS, which is LinkedIn Sales Solutions, and they are responsible for selling Sales Navigator. When I boomeranged back to LinkedIn, I went back to LinkedIn as an IC. So, VP, SVP, and then I went back, and I don't even want to do it like this, because it was just like almost like a loop. I think it's honestly just people's willingness to get in and learn how to use the tool. It's not complicated. You can import your account list, you can upload your leads, and then it creates your own custom newsfeed. And so I know you said LinkedIn, like there's the Sales Navigator component. If you're in sales, you probably have it. And if you don't, I would also encourage people to look into just like investing in it for yourself. Like I know like it's, it's not every company has the luxury of investing in these tools. They're expensive. But as a seller, if I was part of let's say I was part of a startup and they're like, we're not going to invest in Sales Navigator yet, I would go buy it. I would go buy it because I think it can pay you back in dividends. People are so easily willing to just scroll on Instagram and do this. It's like if you supplemented 30 minutes of your Instagram scrolling with LinkedIn scrolling, chances are you're going to uncover some stuff like some prospects or some information or some hidden connections that are going to help you get in front of the right people. So there is a sales component to it. I think there's a personal branding component to it. Like obviously, video is the fastest growing channel on LinkedIn right now.
I was going to ask about this. If you're someone, we're getting towards the end of 2025, but let's say you've got on your to-do list for next year, hey, I want to grow my personal brand. What would be the best, easiest, quickest way of doing that?
Video is, and if you're like, I don't know if video is for me, just start posting. Like literally identify something that you're interested in. For me, maybe it's boomeranging. Like maybe it's like, this idea of like going back to a company that you used to work for and like using that as a topic springboard to start posting things like, hey, people interested in this, like, this is my perspective. Here's an article I've read. What do you think? It's really just about consistency.
Yeah.
Again, like people will say it about influencers, it's like, just get on and do it. Like, so I think my suggestion or my advice would be just to start doing it. Now, if you want to do it fast, like sit down in front of your computer and record 30-minute, like whatever you typed, maybe you do it in a 30-second short form video. I think people will be surprised like how quickly they start to gain traction.
It's interesting as well, I think, how that platform has morphed into something more than simply a business professional network.
There's been a few times where I'm on my phone on LinkedIn and I'm looking at some of the videos and I start to scroll and it's like I have to stop. I'm like, oh my, I thought I was on Instagram. Like it's like the reels, because they're fascinating things, and it delivers content you're interested in. And so I'm watching these things. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm on LinkedIn.
Let's mix it up a little bit. And I want to ask you a couple of questions specifically around your experience in sales. Tell us about biggest deal or biggest deals that you have closed and what got them over the line.
I'll use one from EMEA, and this was with a colleague of mine named Ina, who's awesome. But we closed Revolut for Glassdoor, and this was in like 2019. So this was early Revolut. This was like, online banking was just like, it was them and TransferWise and Monzo were the three. And we did this proof of concept where we set them up with like our tools, like our the pages and the ads and the job postings and stuff, and it was amazing. Like the statistics were there, the data and insights were incredible. The ROI was like 100x. Like it was just it was a very successful proof of concept. And he basically said, okay, we are gonna hold off on this. Like we can't move forward with like renewing this. And this was like, without getting into too many details, like pretty significant 6-figure deal, which would have been like Ina's entire year. And we just panicked and we were like, oh, what do you mean? And in hindsight, we like didn't multi-thread. We didn't work with anyone else. We didn't position, like no one else knew that this was happening in the business. We were just working with this guy.
Right.
We took like 2 or 3 reviews that were pretty bad about the executive leadership team. We sent them to them and we said, here's what's being said. We just ran this pilot. Let us help you. Like you are losing candidates to Monzo and TransferWise. Like this is a serious issue. And within a day or two, I think they were like, can you come to London? Can we do a meeting? Like we got basically everyone together, and it ended up renewing like at a crazy amount. And Ina went to President's Club and she hit her year in one deal. And it was like, but it was this, moment for me where that was one of the first times I realized like, okay, I'm living in like an enterprise world. Like I'm living in this like bigger deal, strategic type world where multi-threading and procurement and like it just becomes a bigger thing. Up until then, it was like SMB and mid-market, like a little enterprise and stuff. But it wasn't until that deal where I had this epiphany of, okay, in order to sell bigger, more strategic deals, there's a whole different,
process
100%.
Let me flip that question then. Tell us about a deal that you lost, the one that got away, the one that still gnaws away, that was maybe a nearly moment or a sliding doors moment.
You want to know what? Like I just had one at EZRA with Hilton, the Hilton brands, and the exact same thing that I just told you happened. The exact same thing. We were working with one procurement person. It was an RFP. They were giving us all the signals, like, can you share more of this? Share pricing here. What's the best and final offer? How would we customize this? What would implementation look like? Like, just all of the signals were pointing in this beautiful direction. And then we get this heartbreaking email a week later that says we've decided to go with someone else. And we found out that they stayed with their current provider, which is fine. But the first question my chief sales officer asked was, who was in the room? Who was making this decision? Who are you selling to? And I'm new, and I'm like 3 months in, and I'm like, procurement, like that. And it was just like, so it's funny, like it's very timely that history has come back to bite me in the butt. Like it is just such a public service announcement to everyone, like multi-thread. get multiple stakeholders in the room. LinkedIn will say that their data suggests buying circles are at least 9 people now. Like,
Get in front of them.
get in front of them.
Yeah.
Like, get people involved. Like, even I know it's difficult at an enterprise level when procurement says like, don't loop anyone else in. They're not going to be able to check if you sent them an email or, sent a note that just says, here's, I just think like, and if that's what kills the deal, I'm in the mindset that like, do we really want to partner with them?
Yeah. If you weren't in sales, what would you be doing?
I went to school for journalism. I am a big written communicator. Like I pride myself on writing great emails and being funny on Slack and getting good engagement. And I think that is a strong suit of mine. I also took broadcast courses and stuff and loved to kind of like do this sort of stuff and talk. And I think if podcasting would have been a thing 15, 20 years ago, like it maybe would have been a clearer path for me. But I think I got to the point where I graduated during the financial crisis in 2008, 2009. And the idea of moving to New York City and making 20 grand a year, like was just impossible. It was just like, there's no way I can do this. Like when someone told me, you should try sales, like you could get paid essentially for talking to people. I'm like, all right, sign me up. So, in a way it was, everything happens for a reason and I'm glad I didn't. There are moments in time where I look back and I think like, man, I miss writing or I miss doing these sort of things. And I've said to myself, you should start a podcast. You should start doing this. Yeah. And I just never have.
Hey, well, you've told us today. You got to start
maybe
posting.
This is.
I want to see you, on a podcast somewhere on LinkedIn doing something. Very soon, coming to a studio near you, perhaps. If I'm opening my laptop, got an email from Brett here from EZRA, and he's saying, this might be. What does this email look like?
Well, first of all, going back to your very first question, which is like, how do you describe what you do to people? When people, like younger people, ask me what I do, I say I'm a professional emailer. That's my job. I try to emulate how I talk in person. Like I try to make it not like robotic or like just following up here or like looping back, like trying to take those like corny follow-up words and just really kind of humanize it. I try to make sure I know something about that person. How did the soccer games go last week? Or, last time we talked, it sounded like you were going on a trip, or like it just connecting the dots between a previous conversation. Now, if it's a cold outreach or someone that's looping me in, I'm usually very gracious. I appreciate, the ability to get looped in here. I'm looking forward to meeting with you. Like it just keep it like soft and
very soft.
Yeah, just easy. Yeah. Early on in my career, I was convinced that like the more information in an email, the better. Like I just want to get all of this out and make sure people aren't reading those. And so it's short, it's sweet, it's encouraging them to get on a call. Yeah. Hey, do you have 15 minutes? Like this would be easier if we could just talk through it really quickly. Yeah. I can adapt to your calendar, bringing the human side of it back to the table. Because in a world where we are virtual, remote, on the go, on our phones,
and automating some of this.
And automating it. Yeah, 100%. Like this is not a ChatGPT email. So that's what I mean by kind of emulating the way I talk.
Yes.
So I use exclamation points. That's me. I use exclamation points to show that I'm excited about stuff or that
I use dashes, and I did it before ChatGPT.
Yes, same. Someone said that to me recently. They said, "Did you use M dashes before ChatGPT?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And they said, "It's this big thing that like ChatGPT uses M dashes." I'm like, "No, I didn't." And one of my best friends who I went to school with in journalism just posted about this on LinkedIn, and she said the same thing. She's like, "I've been using M dashes for
AI's cool, I guess."
Yes.
I saw someone actually recently as well talk about how they, as a copywriter, in their emails or even their LinkedIn posts, started to put the occasional typo just to make to
see that it's
to signal it's human.
Yes.
There's an error. And there's something interesting or somewhat alarming about that. I think that we're in a place now where we're having to error our work to be seen as human.
I use Copilot a lot for my communications that are widespread, that are like I'm casting a wide net. I'm trying to like just make sure we're all on the same page. A lot of what a sales leader's job is to communicate out to the field what's going on. Like I'm big on making sure my team feels connected to the business and understanding what's happening. I think that some sales leaders fall short there, that they have so much of this information that they don't share, rightly or wrongly. But for me, I'm like, the more I can share, the more people understand what's going on. The more they'll understand a decision I make down the road because they've been informed.
Sure.
And so when I'm doing that kind of stuff, like I actually use the microphone function on ChatGPT. Like I'll hit like the talk button, and then I'll just talk to it like a conversation, and then does a really great job of like putting it all together, making it nice. That has been a game changer, is the chat function, like the speaking function on
so many people
ChatGPT.
have said this to me. I'm very anti the voice note on pretty much any platform, so I'm still learning to get comfortable doing that. But there are so many people who've told me, they can go on a dog walk and just word vomit for 20 minutes about this idea that's popped into their head, and it turns it into something you know, digestible, readable, or whatever that looks like.
It'll turn into therapy soon. Like, there probably already businesses that are doing that.
If you've sat down recently with your partner and done your next 3 to 5 year plan, what does that look like?
I've actually done the opposite. I am working on being present. I'm working on operating in a world that is close in proximity to today. Of course, I'm thinking about the future and I'm planning for the future, but as it pertains to my job and my career and my personal life and just things that are this like normal day-to-day things are really right in front of me. And I think that's through the work of being intentional, understanding that past experiences have kept me from being able to do that. And that was what caused a lot of stress and anxiety. It's what caused a lot of my false sense of achievement. It's what stopped me in my tracks, quite frankly. Like, it is something that was very detrimental to my physical and mental health, was not being able to just stop and slow down and recalibrate. And so, I think like there isn't a what's next. Like, I'm very, very happy at EZRA. I explained to my mom what we do, and she said, "Oh, you're like corporate therapy." And I said, "Yeah, exactly. Like, it really is that." I feel really humbled and really grateful for the place that I'm in today, and really proud of myself to be able to say this and know that I'm telling the truth.
Brett, thank you for being present.
Thank you.
On Sales Rewritten.
Here
today. And it's been fantastic to have you here.
Thank you so much.
In the studio. Enjoy your time that remains.
Thank you.
Here in the UK.
Thank you.
But that is it for today's episode of Sales Rewritten. A huge thank you to our guest, Brett Runyan, for joining us and being so open about the real side of leadership and growth. If this episode hit home for you, share it with your team or your colleague who's perhaps quietly questioning what success really does mean. Follow Sales Rewritten wherever you get your podcasts from, and make sure you subscribe to Surf's YouTube channel at Surf HQ, where the full episode and short form clips will be made available. I'm Alex Wood. Thank you so much for listening here today. And remember this, good sales isn't about closing faster. It's about showing up smarter. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.